What's up everyone, welcome back to another week's video. This week we're going to be doing a Crush the Line, the kind of short series where I look at rapids or moves on rapids which are challenging and just try and demystify them, break them down to make them a little bit easier for you to see how to go out and crush the line next time you're at one of these popular spots. So the one I'm doing this week is a popular one and it trips a lot of people up. It is Coliseum Rapid on the Ottawa River at around 6.5. The line I'm going to describe is actually pretty much the same all the way up to about 10, 11-ish. But just because of when I was videoing it, it was about 6.5. But it's basically the same from, I don't know, like 5 or 4 all the way up to, yeah, like 10 or 11 on the gauge there. So you've got quite a big window where this is going to be generally applicable, and hopefully it's going to be useful because it's a big rapid. It's fairly intimidating, and to be honest, like if you swim here, sometimes it's not that bad, and sometimes it can really suck. So a lot of people don't run through it, they walk around it. The trail's easy to walk around it, but I know that there is a few key tips that I've got that I can give people which will be helpful, I think, and maybe encourage more people to give it a shot if they feel like they're up to it. So first, let's take a look at the rapid as a whole. Coliseum has got a couple of big features which are kind of the landmarks we're going to be talking about here. So at the very top there is some small waves on the kind of extreme river left, and then that big main diagonal wave in the center, and that kind of flows directly into this big crashy wave hole called Big Kahuna, which at some flows is more like a wave and at some flows is more like a hole. To the left of it, on the river left side of the Big Kahuna, has kind of a strong diagonal shoulder that feeds into it. And then behind it, there's two waves, second wave and third wave, that kind of disappear and appear and disappear and appear, and they're not ever consistent really, and they're always kind of shifting and changing, but they're roughly in the same place. Sometimes those waves are going to surf you, sometimes they're not. And then continuing downstream on river right, there's a big eddy at the bottom of the rapid, and at the very top of that eddy there's a kind of the final feature, I would say the final feature of note, which is a pour over hole that the rafters all call swimmer's hole, because I guess a lot of rafting guests like get ejected from the raft and start swimming right and then get pounded in there. And it's actually a kind of shallow pour over hole. It's not a significant concern for us in our kayak because it's quite easy for us to avoid. But if you're not paying attention, or if you had a good line at the top and then you're like asleep, you could still get hammered in there. So you want to be aware of that before you make it into that final eddy. So in terms of crushing the line I'm going to be talking about directly here is the kind of right-hand line. I'd say there's two main options. If we look at this overhead view, you can see the left-hand line and the right-hand line are fairly open. The right line is the kind of obvious avoid Big Kahuna to the right and avoid second wave and third wave to the right. But there's also a ton of other options. You could go in that left line is the next most popular line, I'd say, where you're going to go through where the big reactionary and the Big Kahuna wave kind of meet right there. There's like they join up together, and there's a little weak spot where you can punch right through. You could be as creative as you want here really and catch those eddies. You could surf the waves from one side of the river to the other. But I think the easiest line for most people is this river right-hand line. So how do we do that line? What's it going to look like? Again, from the overhead, what I'm trying to do with my kayak is punch through the diagonal wave that kind of guards the rapid right at the top, punch through that wave with some left to right momentum, keep going right, and then stay in that right channel that avoids Big Kahuna and second and third wave all the way through kind of the biggest part of the rapid, easy peasy, no stress, and then you end up at the bottom of the rapid, happy days, right? Now, where most people go wrong here is actually in that very first maneuver. So I talked about it, I kind of talked about it very quickly there, that I'm trying to go left to right and punch through that diagonal. Now, from the overhead, the diagonal looks like kind of small, but once we get there, it can be a lot bigger, and actually as the level creeps up, when it's more in the like 8-9 range, that diagonal can be quite strong. So because it's a diagonal and the downstream end is pointing left, it's trying to turn your boat back to the left. So the thing that I'm always trying to make sure I do as I go through that diagonal is whatever happens, I'm trying to reach through the wave and plant my left stroke for a strong left forward stroke or even a left sweep stroke, and that's going to help keep my bow angle quite aggressively river right. Now, the more I can stay river right, the easier it is for me to just take 1, 2, 3 strokes, and then I'm probably online for the rest of the rapid. But where most people go wrong is they hit that reactionary either too low down, too high up, or they just hit it and let it turn their boat. And from there, they basically, if it turns you there, it's going to be slingshotting you straight into the middle of the big kahuna wave right there at the top. So I guess I could have really shortened this video by just saying you need to make sure you do a left stroke when you go through the reactionary, and that's the magic of the whole thing. And for a lot of it, that is the whole thing. Like, if you can master that and then take a few strokes, you're good. Now, that being said, whilst you're taking those few strokes after you've come through the reactionary, if you look to how much space and time you have over your shoulder, like at the big wave, you're not going to make the line. You're going to get sucked back in. Because, as I've said in many different videos, you always end up going where you're looking, right? So if you are looking at the big hole you're trying to avoid, you're going to end up back in the big hole. If you are looking ahead at the line you're trying to get to, you will make the line. So if you come through that reactionary and you're a bit squiggly and maybe you get a left stroke but not the left stroke you wanted, or maybe your bow's starting to shift downstream, you've still got plenty of time to save it. You can crank a big left sweep stroke in, you can get your bow pointed back to the right, and then you can really turn the speed up to 100 and get over there, and then you're in good shape. But where most people go wrong is that they don't aggressively pursue getting to the right, both by pointing their boat and looking where they want to go. And that's maybe the most important thing, is look where you want to go. If you go too far right, you're going to end up eddying out. It's not a big deal. You just come back into the main current and go downstream. Because this rapid is quite large and there's a lot of power here, all the eddy lines are very strong, so you need to be equally aggressive with your paddling to make it kind of more safely down to the bottom. If you stay aggressive, you're probably in good shape. If you lean back and don't paddle very hard, or you're very timid, it's gonna punish you for it, and you got to keep that in mind. So if you don't make that right hand line, then you are in for a bit of a ride probably. Once you hit that middle wave, you might get surfed, you might get pushed straight through, like upside down, which I've seen happen a number of times, where people just hit it and they kind of like disappear and then they come out a ways downstream. And that it's possible that could happen to you, but it's more probable that you're going to get hammered and get surfed in that first wave. If you can go back to a video I made a few weeks ago about surfing out of a hole, if you can keep it together, look for the exit, you can surf yourself out of there and kind of recover. If you can't recover, you might get pushed out and then surfed in second wave and then surfed in third wave. That's kind of the cost of doing business here. It is a big rapid, and although I'm giving you the easiest things to think about, you do have to remember that it's possible that you are going to get hammered and you're going to swim, and you might have a big swim where you get a big downtime. And the reason you're going to get a big downtime is there's a lot of aeration there. If we look on the overhead again, all that aerated water is shifting and changing, and that can kind of keep you down and push you subsurface for a long time. And like I said, that's kind of the cost of doing business for this rapid. So it's really fun rapid to run. It's not super complicated if you kind of follow my step by step, but you do have to be aware that, like, if it goes wrong, you're going to get hammered. So with that in mind, let's talk safety. The people who you're with are hopefully going to be on board for you running this rapid and helping you do it safely. I have helped people run this rapid for their first time a bunch of times. I found the most effective thing is to be kind of in one of those eddies on River Right, where you are able to kind of hop in and grab people and boats and paddles before it goes off down the next rapid. In this 6, 7, 8, 9 range on the gauge, you are getting pushed fairly quickly into the next rapid, which, depending on where you are, is either going to be center slot or the ledge. The ledge is not a fun swim. The ledge is that like downstream central pour over hole. It's not a fun swim. It's got a big toe back. You should be respectful of it because it can kind of turn a bad day into a really bad day quite quickly, and you do need to be aware of that. So if you're not confident that you're going to make the line, it's not going to be an easy swim. So it's in that like kind of more middle consequence to getting up there, and as the level goes up above 10, that like the consequence of that swim actually starts climbing quite significantly. So you do have to keep that in mind, and you need to make smart decisions based on your ability level and the ability level of the people in your group, of how well equipped they are to save you. Like I said, safety wise, you're going to need some people in their boats ready to come and help you. If they are not able to do that, maybe you shouldn't be doing this rapid, because if something goes wrong for you, you need someone to help you get back to river right. Now, most of the water's pushing back right afterwards, so if you are out of your boat, you need to start going right as quickly as you can. You should end up in that eddy, keep going right, and the water kind of hooks around before it goes to Dog's Leg, which is the right-hand channel of that next rapid. So if you keep going right, you'll eventually end up in the eddy. But I have seen people swim and get pushed kind of into center slot and ways downstream, and it sucks. So you don't want that to happen to you. So keep that in mind. Although I talked at the start about like how this rapid's not super difficult if you know what to do, the consequences of it can still be significant, and you need to be respectful of that risk versus reward that we talk about quite often in kayaking, and just know where you fit and how running this is going to be a good achievement, but is it worthwhile for you, and just kind of make that trade-off based on your ability and the ability of the people you're with to help you, because it's a team sport. We're in a team sport here, and you need to be aware of that. And that's all I really have on Crush the Line Coliseum. I didn't talk about the other lines possible here. There are tons of other lines possible. This is just the one I think is easiest, and kind of a bit of guidelines to help you go down it if you think that's something you want to do. Like I said, risk versus reward, you need to assess very carefully. It's not a gimme, it's not a super easy swim. It can suck, so trade that off. I'm not telling you to run it, I'm not telling you not to run it, I'm telling you to make your own decisions. But if you do make a decision, this is like a little bit of a guideline to how to do that, and hopefully you're going to do it in a way which is safe. That's all I've got for this week. I will see you again next week. Peace.